Acting Speaker, and I'm very happy to stand and talk to this government motion, working from home, and that this House condemns the opposition leader for failing to stop the Shadow Treasurer's reckless campaign for mandatory 5-day return to office, condemn the Shadow Treasurer for spreading misinformation on working from home, and commit to Labor's plan to legislate working from home as a right for Victorians. I think it was in the first month or so of being a member and being in the chamber and being very green, not really knowing how it worked and all of those things. I remember the member for Brighton talking. I'm not sure what he was talking about, but he was obviously debating an issue, and he brought up the fact that he worked really, really hard. And he worked so hard that he sacrificed time with his wife and sacrificed having time with his children. And he talked about how that affected him. And me being sort of, I guess, green or whatever in this place, after he finished, he left the chamber and I went out and had a chat to him and just said, you know, it's, I heard what you said and I'm really sad that this is the case, and I think it's really important. You know, I've got kids and a wife, and it's so important that we make sure we have time, we make time to be with our loved ones. Kids grow up, and before we know it, they've gone and they're living their own lives, and they call you once a month and come home with the washing and all those sorts of things. And I thought the member for Brighton kind of took it on board. You know, he seemed to understand what I was talking about. And then maybe a week or two later in the chamber, he spoke about the same thing. Spoke about the fact that he worked incredibly hard, that he sacrificed his time with his children and his family, and he found that hard. So I guess I'm a bit angry at the member for Brighton. I guess empathy is certainly not one of his strengths, and he's certainly showing that with wanting people to not, work from home, but to make people sit in this same box as him, which is possibly to go to the office every day and resent it. Sit there in the office, work hard and think about what you're missing at home and the time that you could be having with your wife and the time you're missing out with your kids. So it's very disappointing that the member for Brighton would try and put the rest of the population in this sort of unhappy box that he seems to happily be unhappy living in. And I think too, there's been a lot of wonderful things said in the chamber tonight, obviously from only this side of the chamber. One of the things I sort of want to talk about, and one of the things I want to yell out loud, and especially to the member for Brighton, is that working from home can be and is a lifeline for many people. And so I reflect and I talk about my daughter with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and connective tissue disorder, but I look at her working life. She's someone that, and many people like her, she's someone that desperately wants to have a meaningful life. She's someone that wants to work, and I've watched her struggle. And in our society, you go to work, and yes, as the member for Brighton says, you go to work from 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 or whatever it is, and it doesn't matter how you feel if you're unwell, but you stick at it and you work, and ultimately what you end up doing is harming yourself because you're trying to fit in this box that everyone else says you need to. And I watched my daughter want to work, want to earn a living and want to have a meaningful life, but I watched her also harm herself and damage herself because physically she wasn't able to do that. So she changed jobs a few times. She retrained. She wanted to be a dancer and an actor and she couldn't do that. And she was an au pair, but she couldn't carry babies because of her bad back. And she became a bookkeeper and she had a job in a trucking company. And that was quite good, except she wasn't able to sit for long and she wasn't able to stand for long. And so she wasn't able to go to the office 5 days a week. And she changed it down from 5 days to 4 and then 4 to 3. But unfortunately, the attitude of the time was you either are in the office or you're not actually working for us. And so many people like my daughter had to leave that office and find another employer that had empathy, that would support someone that was effectively had a disability, but they didn't see the disability as not being able to do the work and not being able to be passionate and committed and intelligent. They saw it as a disability that you were unable to sit in an office all day. And so they, my daughter found a job where she could actually work from home. And she went from 1 day or 2 days a week. But as, unfortunately, as connective tissue disorder and took over her life more and more, she had to ask to work from home more often until eventually she started her own business. And that way she could... Really?
On a point of order?
Just call into question the state of the House acting. I think on a night like this, it's important that the right amount of people make quorum, and I just check. For some of...
Quorum not present, ring the bells. Quorum present. Member for Hastings to continue.
As I was talking about, respect and integrity, and that this working from home isn't just about a choice. Working from home is actually a lifeline. It's actually a lifeline for some people. And the fact that the lack of empathy and respect shown on that side to do that act then just shows that there are people that don't deserve to be sitting in this chamber and hopefully won't be sitting in this chamber next year, next Parliament. Working from home is more than just a simple idea. It gives people the ability to have a meaningful life. And I think not too many people have spoken about that today in the chamber, and that's okay. I mean, my life, lived experience is a little bit different, but working from home gives some people meaning, purpose, the ability to actually have an income, to be part of a team, to contribute, and also to have a social life. Because when you're stuck at home because you're unwell, but if you have a job, you're able to communicate and work within a team. And I think that is so very important, and it's the side of this motion and this bill that I don't think we're looking at enough. And I think empathy and being considerate and kind to all of those people, not just people that can fulfil a full-time job, but people that want to fulfil a full-time and meaningful life. I might just finish by saying my wife doesn't like me working from home. You've seen the photo of me in the garage. I was actually in the garage because I'm making phone calls and my wife doesn't want to listen. Sometimes I don't like working from home because my wife wants to come in and ask me about things and jobs around the house. But what an absolute pleasure it is to be able to sit in my house and work, but also enjoy the love and warmth and company of my wife. So I support this motion.